Hey y'all, welcome back. I'm Drew and this is my 1968 911S project car. This is a car that we are focusing on fixing the torsion tube, replacing it, and the layers of the longitudinal that come along with that repair. And the reason we're doing that is that this car has had quite a hard life and has significant rust. It spent the last 30 years outside in the desert, and I acquired it about 3 years ago when I traded it for my Ford Raptor. So what we're going to do in today's video is finish out the middle layer on both sides of the car, as well as work on the passenger side inner layer. A lot of the stuff that you're going to see in today's video is a little bit of a repeat. We did a lot of it to the driver's side. Now we're going to do rinse and repeat on the passenger side. So we will run through the clips a little bit quicker. I won't spend as much time explaining things. So if you do want to check out the process in a little more detail, you can head back to some of the other videos. So I've had a bit of a goal for myself that by this time I would have the middle and inner layers welded to the torsion tube. So we'll achieve that in this video. I'm very happy to have reached that point. We'll have to set a new goal for ourselves for the coming videos. But let's go ahead and jump into the video. We got a lot of good stuff. So we went ahead and ground down the weld to bring the new layer into the longitudinal, and then we went and ran our welds on the inner layer to the tube. So that's complete and it's fully secure on both sides now. Very happy with that. It's quite an awkward position to go all the way underneath and all around the top. So I'm happy with how it turned out regardless, and it's officially locked into place. All right, so I ended up cutting more of the outer away to get a little bit more access. I had hit the heater tube with a cutting blade, and so I welded that closed and primered over it. So it took me a lot longer than I'd like to admit to make this middle piece that you're looking at hanging in, basically telescoped over the torsion tube in place, roughly. And so now that it is formed, roughly fitting together with the existing metal and the metal I had transported in from the 912, I'm pretty happy with the fitment at this point. I'm going to go ahead and tack it in and maybe even complete the welds. There it is, all welded in. Pretty happy with that. And there's a pretty big gap between the two pieces here, so I had to make that weld pretty thick. Made it work. So that's the middle section done on this driver's side. I ran the weld about 70% of the circumference of the tube to the middle layer, and it is complete. So it's a big win there. And the only thing left on the inner layer is we need a fabricated piece to bridge the section that we first welded in, first piece of new metal we put in, to the piece that we welded to the inner layer in this area to the tube itself. So a little piece, maybe 2-3 inches wide, has a bend, has a flange on it. So we'll get working on that at some point, maybe not in this video, but very happy with how this feels. Very secure, not going anywhere. 2 layers in and attached to the tube. Let's go over to the passenger side and make an assessment on the middle layer. It's definitely has its own problems, and we're going to have to talk about how we're going to replace it. So here's a shot of the middle layer here on the passenger side. We're looking from the back to the front of the car, and you can tell it's very damaged in here. So as far as it goes forward, we're probably going to have to replace the bottom section. So I think we're going to have to probably do some of the same work, get the floor detached here, get exposure to the inner layer, maybe cut that out, and then transplant the new middle layer in the forward section, and then do another piece for the back section like we kind of just finished up on the driver's side. So I went ahead and cut out the inner layer that goes towards the seat that had some rust in it. We're going to replace that with a piece from the 912. And then with that, the floor it comes out to where the seam is for the outer layer, which is right out here. Cut along the seam, and that basically took out the inner this is the middle spot welded to the inner and the floor with it. So as far as the middle layer goes, we're going to work on replacing that first. I cut high enough where it seems like the rust damage is pretty much below it, so we're at a pretty good height. We'll probably follow the same process where we cut, we drill some spot welds out, push the middle layer away from the inner layer, and then cut a little bit higher on the inner layer so that we can spot weld in the new middle layer. So I think what we'll do next is drill out some of the spot welds that are connecting the middle and the inner layer just above this cut up here, and start preparing to make that secondary inner cut to expose where we're going to spot weld in the middle layer. There's that section of the middle layer welded in. We're going to grind it down and start prepping the area for the inner layer, and then we will work back and do the middle layer back at the torsion tube. So there's the inner layer welded in, and obviously we still need to connect the inner layer to the section that's attached to the torsion tube, so we will have to recreate that out of a piece of sheet metal. So there is the middle layer welded in. We have the middle layer complete on both sides of the car now, and I got the weld to the torsion tube done as well. So on both sides we have the inner middle welded into the existing sheet metal and welded to the torsion tube. So everything's pretty secure at this point. So to actually complete the entire project of doing the torsion tube, the last piece of the puzzle is the outer piece, the outer section. And as you can see, this piece is quite large, and it extends all the way up into the door jamb. Part of me is trying to figure out if this is the next piece to go on, or if we have the car sandblasted at this point. I feel like sandblasting would help a lot to expose everything we're going to need to fix here. And if I go ahead and try and replace this piece, I know for a fact that up here at the base of the door, there's some spots where this is kind of blown through or rusted through in this area. And this bottom section is all depressed and has a bunch of fixes and patches and stuff like that. So I'd like to replace that as well. So it almost seems like we really need to use a lot of this forward section, not so much of the rear section, but I just don't know. I'm gonna have to think about what the next step in the puzzle is, because to get to the stuff under here, I need to take off the rocker outer cover and this part of the door jamb, and that just kind of opens us up to, okay, now we're inside the rocker panel. We got to prepare what's in there. It's just one of those things. It's like, how far do we go, and is it a slippery slope to continue forward on the car, and should we just pause and get the car sandblasted and then start progressing forward? So figuring out whether we're going to go with finishing up the outer section, or whether we're going to stop and sandblast the whole car, I'm going to have to figure that out. But that's kind of where we're at next. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up the video there. We're running through a lot of this stuff pretty quick in this video, and a lot of that's because it's a bit of a repeat from the driver's side. Now we're doing it on the passenger side, but a lot of progress is being made. It's allowing me, everything that I've learned so far is allowing me to go faster. That's been a nice change, because at first it was quite a bit slow and I had to figure out things, but we've learned a lot and we're progressing pretty quickly at this point, in my opinion, at least compared to how we were starting. So like I said, we have the middle layer completely done on both the driver's side and the passenger side now. As far as the inner layer, we have just a small section on either side to recreate with some sheet metal. We'll tackle that shortly. So it's just between the section that we welded to the tube and the section that's up here at the floorboard. So we'll recreate both of those sides and finalize that layer. And then we have to kind of figure out what we're going to do with the outer layer next, or whether we're going to go to sandblasting. So I appreciate you guys if you made it this far. If you have and you haven't subscribed, if you could, go ahead and do so. That'd be great. And I'd love to hear from you guys. Feel free to comment and let me know what you think about the progress so far. And I'll catch you guys in the next video.